Hi Xai'nyy of planet Earth, this is Xai'nyy, and today's episode is going to be on the Xai'nyy social alchemy. Social alchemy is basically the energetic interplay between two or more mojos. Actually, it can be more complex and profound than that, but for today we'll just focus on the basics of the social alchemy, which is between yourself and one or more other mojos. What you'll be reading are the alchemic relationships between you and the other person or persons, how they're hitting you and your powers, and that's how you're reading them, and that's the alchemy, the social alchemy. So you're literally reading the soup between the two of you, or if there are more than two, then however many are interacting. All mojos are designed so they can interact positively with productive harmony with any other mojo. However, it will be a question of how difficult it is to do, both energetically and skill-wise. So the further away mojos are from you as far as their relative nature to you and the way you were designed, then it will be more challenging to interact with them, engage with them, and the closer those variables are to yourself, then the easier it will be to find socially harmonious ways of doing things. But you can do this with any group, and that's what you're supposed to do. Find out how you can work with all humans, and social alchemy teaches you how to do that. In order to get to all of them, you need to build up your energetic fluency. And to do that, you should start with mojos that are more native to you, and then reach out further and further into your social alchemies until you get all of them. The first social alchemy is design recognition. Design recognition is where you're able to see other humans that have the same design as you, in this case, Xai'nyy. So you, as a Xai'nyy, when you're able to see and accept all of the Xai'nyy on the planet, so every other human that has the Xai, the Ni, the Vi, and the Z in that order, and that includes all nationalities, all races, all genders, sexual orientations, developmental levels, age groups, etc. You have to find love and association with those of your mojo, even though they're vastly maybe something that you wouldn't want to be, or maybe it's something that seems so incredible that you could never be that. I mean, they're all Xai'nyy, and you need to find that commonality, that acceptance and that love with all of the other Xai'nyy to really understand yourself. So all of that is part of your design of being a Xai'nyy. And when you're able to see that, that's a profound experience, both of loving yourself and loving other humans. The second social alchemy is the inspirational partner. The Xai'nyy has as their conscious powers the Xai, Ni, Vi, and Z, which you've heard about, and that implies who their inspirational partner is, because their inspirational partner has the four powers that you have unconsciously. They will have those powers that you have unconsciously in their conscious and in the right order for you. So in this case, that will be the Xai'nyy mojo. The Xai'nyy has Xai'nyy, Vi, and Xai, which is perfectly paired with you to make a complete story with your four powers. So those four powers together, all 8 of them, make a complete story, and that story is called the Genèse storyline. The third social alchemy grouping is the same source partner. As a Xai'nyy, you are a Xai Alpha. That means that you use Xai, the power of Xai, as your source power. And there's one other mojo that also uses Xai as their source power, and that's the Xai V. So the Xai V is your cousin mojo. They're very similar to you, but they do things a bit different because they have a different tandem power, different main perception, and it's a great way to be able to learn how to relate to the Xai V. Is a great way to learn about your source power of Xai and the breadth of what it can do. The fourth social alchemy grouping is the inverse mojo partner. The inverse mojo is the mojo for anyone that is using the same momentum compound you are, except that they favor the other power. So for you as the Xai'nyy, there's another mojo that also has those same momentum powers, the Xai and the Ni, but uses them in a different order, and that will be the Ni Xai. And this is a very similar mojo to you, the Xai'nyy. And you can learn a lot about yourself through them, and it's a good way to start expanding your bubble by expanding your bubble into first, other Xai'nyy, and then to the Xai'nyy, and then to the Xai'vi, and now into the Nijai. Those are mojos that have a lot to offer you, a lot to teach you, a lot to give you, and you have a lot to teach and give them. So it's a very, very rewarding exchange all around. Those are the beginning blocks of your social alchemy, and it'll be these initial groupings that will allow you to relate to all the rest of them. You'll find that you'll see all these mojos, the Xai'nyy, the Xai'nyy, the Xai'vi, the Nijai, frequently throughout your social alchemies because they're so similar to you. So now let's expand your social alchemy bubbles and let's go into the quartets. Social alchemy group number 5 is a source song quartet, and this is basically about a channel. So there are 4 channels in your psyche, to here, and you have the values-based channel here, and that's where Xai is, right? But there are 3 other channels as well, but those are not the most native to you. The values-based channel is the most native to you, with you having the source power of Xai. There are 4 mojos that have the values-based channel as their native channel, and they share a profound energetic fluency with one another. So the 4 mojos that are in this grouping are obviously yourself, the Xai'nyy, but also the Xai'vi that we talked about before, also the Xai'nyy that we talked about before, but now we also have a new mojo come into play here, and that is the Xai'vi. So the Xai'vi is another mojo that is a lead values-based mojo and is a Jez Alpha. Social alchemy group number 6 is the storyline quartet. Storyline quartets is based on 2 inspirational compounds. So what that's going to be is the Xai with the Ni compound and the Xi with the Nai compound. Those 2 together, the people who have that, which are four mojos, those are called the romantic mojos. So that includes yourself, the Xai'nyy, also the Nijai, also the Xai'nyy, and now we have a new one, which is the Naiji, and those comprise the romantics, what we call the romantics mojos. Social alchemy group number 7 is the change flow quartet. Now, change flow is how you energetically naturally favor or are fed by things that are either moving forward in a progressive way versus holding steady and being meticulous. And there's a balance that needs to be maintained between those 2 for all humans. But all mojos come with a preset energetics as to which they favor what's easiest, more comfortable, more energizing for them. For you as a Xai'nyy, you are in the change flow quartet, you are what is called second wave. So second wave are those mojos that have an interpretive power as their second power, and then have a literal power as their offside or third ranked power. So the 4 mojos in this second wave quartet, who all again have an interpretive power as their second power and a literal power as their third ranked power, are the Xai'nyy, so yourself, also the Xai'nyy, also the Xai'nyy, and now we also have the Xai'nyy come into play as well. The 8th social alchemy grouping is the special club quartet. Now here we're combining environmental preferences. So what environments do you find most conducive? And when it comes to environment, there are generally 2 things that heavily affect your environment as far as the stimulus or the ambiance of it, and it's going to be what kind of information is being given, and is it being done in a subjective or an objective way, so an inward or an outward way. So the Xai'nyy are part of this grouping called, in the special club quartet, called the subjective interpretives quartet. And in here you're going to have mojos that favor getting energy from the inner world, so like that secret layer, secret cave. And while they're there, they speak an interpretive, a pattern-based language. So they speak an interpretive pattern-based language and are inwardly oriented. So those mojos, besides yourself, the Xai'nyy, you also have the Xai'nyy, which we've seen before in previous groupings. We also have the Xai'nyy, which we've also seen before in previous groupings, and now we have a new mojo that's part of this social alchemy grouping with you, the Xai'nyy, who is the Xai'nyy. So that's the new one in this grouping. The Xai'nyy is the fourth subjective interpretive, and that helps expand your game even further. So now we're going to expand your horizons even more and move out further. These are still quartets, but they're further out quartets from you. We'll start with the discernment quartet. Quartet number 9 is the discernment face quartet. So here what happens from the mouth to the cheeks and how they interplay has to do with your values-based powers interplaying with your logic-based powers. So whatever your lead discernment is, your momentum discernment is, that's what's going to give your face, the cheeks, the mouth, a general aspect based on it. So you as a Xai'nyy, since you have Xai as your lead discernment, that's going to lend your face a natural poignancy aspect. You have a Xai face, you have an unaware mouth because you have Xai again as your lead discernment, and that gives a certain aspect to your mouth, your cheek, your face in general, which is that of Xai face. So you hear that said a lot, and throughout different filmings, Xai face or Xai mojos or something to that effect. That will apply to you since you have Xai as your lead discernment. So mojos that are in this grouping include yourself, the Xai'nyy, also the Xai'vi, the Xai'nyy Xai, and another mojo that we haven't seen yet for you in your social alchemy bubbles, and that is the V Xai. So now you're expanding your horizons even further, but you have a bridge, which is that all of these mojos get momentum from Xai like you do. And that's a great bridge for you to work from to meet these new mojos and make new friends. This also applies to quartet number 10, which is the perception quartet. The power of perception, whichever one you favor, that's what gives the baseline quality to your eyes. You as a Xai'nyy, you have Xai'nyy as your top perception, Xai'nyy over here, and that will lend your eyes a general aspect of Xai'nyy dancing eyes. So there are four mojos that have Xai'nyy dancing eyes, and that will include yourself, the Xai'nyy, also the Xai'nyy, which we've talked about, the Xai'nyy Xai, and a new one here, which is the Xai'nyy Xai. So they all have dancing eyes and make up the dancing eyes quartet, and it's also what we call Xai'nyy mojos. So you may hear those terms to refer to this social alchemy grouping, and both of them are correct. So either the Xai'nyy mojos or the dancing eyes mojos, both are correct, just different ways of saying it. The social alchemy number 11 is the psyche priority quartet. So we talked about before how you can divide up the quadrants of your psyche into either role-playing characters like the Tower Cleric, the Rogue Gatherer, the Fighter Pilot, and the Wizard Hunter, or you can divide it up into, or think of it as parts of a ship. So here we have the worldview or map. Here we got the dynamics mover or steering. Here we have the stimulus register or the console taking in information from the outside, or looking in the front view mirror and taking it in. And here we have the compass bearings or suspension system. So you as a Xai'nyy, you're part of this Tower Cleric quartet or the suspension system. You are a subjective discernment quartet or a mojo within that subjective discernment quartet. Besides yourself, the Xai'nyy, in this quartet, we also have the Xai'nyy. You also have the Xai'vi, and a new one who's part of this tower quartet, so meaning they start in this quadrant here, is the Xai'vi. So we have Xai'nyy, we have Xai'vi, we have the Xai'nyy, and we have the Xai'vi. The Xai'nyy is the fourth of the towers, and for you to really understand what it means to be a tower in its totality, then you'd have to understand and be able to interact successfully with all these mojos, including a Xai'nyy. The last of the quartets, Social Alchemy group number 12, is the Shades of Consciousness quartet. What that means is that there are, as we talked about, 4 powers that are conscious for any human, and there are 4 others that are unconscious. And because of that human design that we talked about in previous episodes, there's only a certain number of combinations one can have. And these are 16 basic combinations, design combinations of the way you can have your powers configured. That makes for 4 quartets, 4 sets of 4, and each of these quartets have 4 mojos in them that all share the same 4 conscious powers, but in a different ranking. So you as a Xai'nyy are in a quartet that is the Xai'nyy, Vi, and Z, but you can think of these powers being in any order. So this grouping would also include the Ni Xai, and over here we have 2 mojos that you haven't been introduced to yet, and these are quite different from you because they use your modulation powers as their top powers, but they have your momentum powers, your Xai'nyy, as their modulation powers, and these are going to be the Vi Z and the Z Vi. So those mojos have as their modulation the Xai and the Ni. So these 4 mojos, the Xai'nyy, the Ni Xai, the Vi Z, and the Z Vi, these are shades of consciousness together, and so when you see them, if you're beginning mojo readers, for example, you may confuse these for one another. Even though they have vastly different energy fields, you'll actually see the Xai'nyy aware mouth on all 4 of these mojos, but you'll see it in different ratios. You'll see them doing the eyes left concern, but again in different ratios. So it's very interesting, and it really helps you expand your idea of what your powers are and what they can do, and how they relate to the rest of the tribe. When you're able to see your powers in another human, but another human that's configured in a different way, and they're rocking their powers, they're being heroic, they're maxing the potential for them, it really opens your mind to what those powers can do. So they're getting momentum, they're getting modulation, they're doing heroic stuff. It's just different from you, different but part of the same whole. We'll now get into the octets. The octets basically are going to go along with energy fields, like second gear stuff for mojo reading, and that will determine in which set of the octet you're in. The most important of these octets will be the directive adaptive octet. So there are 8 mojos that are adaptive and 8 mojos that are directive, and you as a Xai'nyy, starting on the right side of the brain, you are one of the adaptive mojos. Social Alchemy grouping number 14 is the objective subjective octet. You as a Xai'nyy, your first power, the power of Xai, is a subjective power, so you're one of the subjective mojos. Social Alchemy grouping number 15 is the perception discernment octet. You as a Xai'nyy, you have again Xai as your top power, which is a discernment power, and that means that you are a discernment lead mojo. Social Alchemy grouping number 16 is the logic-based, values-based octet. As a Xai'nyy, your top discernment is Xai, which is a values-based discernment, so you are a values-based mojo. Social Alchemy grouping number 17 is going to be the literal versus adaptive octet. You as a Xai'nyy, you have Ni as your lead perception, and this is an interpretive perception, so you are an interpretive mojo. Social Alchemy grouping number 18 is the discernment modulation octet. And this octet is about whether your mojo combines Xai with Z, which is what you do, or whether it combines the Xi with Xai. You're one of the mojos that has that Xai with Z modulation, and that grouping has 7 other mojos, many of them quite different from you, but they do share that commonality, and that is something that you can relate to in both the way you work inside your psyche, but also how you read them. They're going to have physiological cues that are similar to you in that way. So they relate to you in that they have that Xai'nyy mouth and the Z articulation, for example, just like you do. And that's another way to learn about your powers and how the entire tribe of humanity works together. Social alchemy grouping number 19 is the perception modulation octet, which is about whether or not you have Ni with Vi perception mojo, or whether you have the Nai with V. Because Ni is always paired with Vi in some ratio, and Nai is always paired with V, that's something that you need to keep in mind when you're thinking about the perception modulation. That those compounds will always go together. Those powers will always be modulating one another. And you're one of the mojos as Xai'nyy, Vi, and Z that uses that Ni and Vi. And there are 7 other mojos that have that as well, but again, it will be in different ratios than yourself. Finally, social alchemy number 20 is the entire human collective. The entire human collective has a bond in that they were built and evolved together. They have various human designs, they have the powers that they have the social alchemies that they have, because they're part of this one big math, this human math. And we can share with one another. Every human you're looking at is like they are, because they're from the human species, which is the most advanced energetics we know of in the cosmos. So you are awesome because you're part of it, and so is every other human. So humans are awesome, so know yourself, grow yourself, save the world.